They sent an alien girl to be my personal helper, but she became something more vertical bar, HFY. Sci-Fi. Under the pale morning sky of New Harbor City, Evan Cole stood alone on the balcony of his small apartment. The city below was quiet in a strange way, like it was holding its breath. Ships from other worlds hung in the clouds like slow-moving stars, their shapes smooth and silent. They had been there for months now, ever since Earth signed the Unity Agreement. Evan did not like looking at them. They made him feel small. He worked as a systems technician for the city power grid. It was not a grand job, but it kept the lights on. Evan liked things that worked the way they were supposed to. Machines made sense. People did not always. His wrist screen chimed softly. New message. Priority level high. Evan sighed and opened it. The message was short. You have been selected for the Interstellar Helper Program. Your assigned helper will arrive today at 0900 hours. Cooperation is required. That was it. No explanation. No choice. Evan stared at the words for a long moment. He had heard about the program, of course. Everyone had. Selected humans were paired with alien helpers who would live with them, assist them, and observe human life. The news channels called it a cultural exchange. The rumors called it surveillance. Evan rubbed his face and went back inside. At exactly 0900, there was a knock on his door. 3 soft taps. Calm. Patient. Evan opened the door. She stood there in the hallway, perfectly still. She looked human at first glance. Same height. Same shape. Pale skin. Dark hair tied back neatly. But her eyes were different. They were too focused, too sharp, like they were always measuring something. She wore a simple gray uniform with no marks. He noticed she was barefoot. "I am Lyra," she said. Her voice was smooth and clear without any emotion. "I am assigned to assist you." Evan blinked. "You can come in," he said. Lyra stepped inside and stopped just past the door. She looked around the apartment slowly, her eyes moving from wall to wall, object to object. Evan felt like the room itself was being scanned. "This living space is small," she said. "Is it sufficient for your needs?" "It works," Evan replied. She nodded once. "Then it is acceptable." She stood there, waiting. "You can sit," Evan said, pointing to the couch. Lyra looked at the couch, then at him. "Is sitting required at this moment?" "No," Evan said. "It just helps people relax." "I will observe," she said, and sat down with perfect posture, hands resting on her knees. Evan went to the kitchen and poured himself a glass of water. His hands shook a little. He tried to ignore it. "So," he said, leaning against the counter, "what exactly do you help with?" Lyra tilted her head slightly. "I assist with daily tasks. I observe your behavior. I record emotional and decision-based responses." Evan nearly choked on his water. "You record what?" "All relevant data," she said calmly. "That sounds less like helping and more like spying," Evan said. Lyra looked confused. "Spying is a hostile act. This is evaluation." "That is not better," Evan muttered. Lyra watched him closely. "Your heart rate increased. Your tone changed. Are you experiencing distress?" "I am fine," Evan said quickly. She nodded, but her eyes stayed on him. The first hour was uncomfortable. Lyra followed Evan everywhere. She asked questions about simple things. Why humans drank hot liquid in the morning, why they locked doors, why they greeted strangers but avoided eye contact. Evan answered as best he could. Sometimes he did not know the answer himself. When Evan left for work, Lyra walked beside him. People on the street stared. Some looked curious, some looked afraid. A few looked angry. At the power station, Evan's supervisor pulled him aside. "So you got one too," the man said quietly, glancing at Lyra. "She is not a pet," Lyra said instantly. The supervisor jumped back in shock. "I did not say that," he muttered. "You implied it," Lyra replied. Evan stared at her. "You do not have to do that. I am designed to respond to disrespect," she said. The supervisor quickly walked away. Inside the control room, Lyra stood behind Evan as he worked. She watched his hands move across the console. "You understand this system very well," she said. "I have worked here for years," Evan replied. "You take responsibility seriously," she added, "even when there is no reward." Evan shrugged. "Someone has to do it." Lyra paused. "That response is illogical. If there is no benefit, why act?" "Because things fall apart if nobody cares," Evan said. She did not reply, but her eyes lingered on him longer than before. Later that day, a minor fault hit one of the city lines. Power levels dipped. Alarms flashed. Evan moved fast. He rerouted energy manually, adjusting flows by instinct more than calculation. Sweat formed on his brow. Lyra stood silently, watching. When the system stabilized, Evan exhaled in relief. "You did not hesitate," Lyra said. "Failure could have harmed thousands." "That is the job," Evan replied. "Most of my people would wait for command approval," she said. "You did not." Evan frowned. "People could have died." Lyra looked down at her hands. "Interesting." That night, back at the apartment, Evan collapsed onto the couch. Lyra stood near the window, staring at the alien ships in the sky. "Do you miss your home?" Evan asked without thinking. She turned slowly. "I do not understand the concept of missing." "Never mind," he said. After a long silence, Evan noticed a faint light reflecting from Lyra's wrist. He sat up. "What is that?" he asked. Lyra hesitated. "I am transmitting today's data," she said. Evan walked closer. On her wrist screen, lines of symbols scrolled rapidly. He did not understand them, but he noticed something odd. The transmission meter showed far more data than expected. "That looks like a lot," Evan said. "Are you supposed to send that much?" Lyra's fingers twitched. "The required amount is lower." "Then why send more?" She looked at him. For the first time, her calm expression cracked, just slightly. "Because I am uncertain," she said. "About what?" Evan asked. "About you," Lyra replied. Before Evan could respond, the transmission ended. The light faded. Lyra straightened. "I will reduce future output to standard levels." "Why were you worried?" Evan asked. Lyra looked away. "Some questions do not require immediate answers." Evan felt a chill. That night, as Evan lay in bed, he stared at the ceiling. He could hear Lyra moving quietly in the other room. She did not sleep. He wondered if she ever did. He thought about her words, about evaluation, about uncertainty. Outside, the alien ships drifted slowly, watching the planet below. Evan had the uneasy feeling that this was not about help at all. And whatever Lyra was truly sent to do, she was already struggling with it. In the darkness, Lyra stood by the window again, her eyes reflecting distant lights. For the first time since her arrival, she did not record her thoughts. She simply watched Evan's door and waited. Evan woke early the next morning. The city outside was alive now. Traffic hummed, people moved quickly, and the alien ships hovered silently above, reflecting sunlight in strange colors. He could hear Lyra moving in the apartment, though he could not see her. She had not slept all night, as usual. "You are awake," Lyra said. standing in the kitchen doorway. She held a small tray with a cup of hot liquid and some food. "I prepared your meal. Hot liquid at optimal temperature and nutrients at proper balance." Evan sat at the table and looked at her. She had placed the tray neatly in front of him, just as he liked it. Yet there was a strange rigidity to her movements, a precision that felt unnatural. "Thanks," he said. He stirred the liquid but did not drink. "You could have just handed it to me. You don't need to make a big production out of it." "I do not understand your reaction," Lyra said. "Presentation does not require emotion. It only delivers data efficiently." "Are you dissatisfied?" "No, it's fine," Evan said. He realized he sounded harsher than he intended. Lyra tilted her head slightly, observing him. At work, Lyra followed him as before, but today she asked questions he did not expect. "Why do humans sometimes act against their own safety for others?" she asked as he adjusted circuits on the control panel. Evan paused, and the tools in his hand stayed still. "You mean like risking your life for someone else?" "Yes." "It appears illogical," Lyra said. "The act reduces survival probability, yet it occurs frequently. What motivates it?" Evan leaned back. "People care about each other. They want to protect those they love even if it's dangerous. Sometimes that's more important than safety." "Interesting," Lyra said. "Your response includes subjective evaluation. Is that empathy?" "I suppose it is," Evan said. He rubbed his eyes. "It's messy, and it doesn't always make sense." Lyra did not respond immediately. She studied him silently, her head tilted, lips barely moving. Other workers at the power station glanced at her, whispering. Her presence drew attention wherever she went. During lunch, Evan ate quickly while Lyra remained standing, watching. "Do humans always consume food for energy?" she asked. "Some act as though it is social or emotional. You displayed agitation when offered alternative meals yesterday. Explain." Evan smiled faintly. "Sometimes food is comfort, not just energy. People remember meals with friends or family. It's part of being human." Lyra paused. "I do not have a reference for that. I will attempt to understand." After lunch, Mason, the security officer, appeared at the control room. He gave Evan a knowing look. "Your helper isn't like the others," Mason said quietly. "They are supposed to observe. Most do it without emotion or hesitation. She doesn't. Watch her closely. She might be dangerous in her own way." "What do you mean?" Evan asked. "Some helpers report humans who display too much independent thought. Not rebellion, just behavior outside what they expect. That can put people in danger. Lyra isn't acting standard. You need to be careful." Evan felt a chill. "She already seems to care about me," he said. "Isn't that good?" Mason shook his head. "Good for you, maybe. Bad for her. They don't allow deviation." Back at the apartment that evening, Lyra followed Evan's movements as he cooked dinner. She watched closely, silent as always, but her head moved slightly more than usual, tracking him with subtle curiosity. "Why do you watch me so carefully?" Evan asked. "I am not doing anything unusual." "You are not unusual," she said. "You are unpredictable. That is why I must observe closely. Data must be accurate. Assessment requires precision." Evan stopped stirring the food. "Assessment of what?" "The human subject," she said. "You? Me?" Evan laughed nervously. "Why would anyone need to assess me? I am just me." Lyra's eyes glinted softly. "Humans who act independently, who display emotional variance, are significant. My people call it anomaly. Anomalies can disrupt order or inspire change. Both outcomes must be understood. Evan stared at her. So you are not just helping. You are evaluating me for something else? She nodded slightly. Evaluation is my primary function. Assistance is secondary. The words sank in. A helper that was supposed to make life easier was also judging him. Later, Evan tried to relax in the living room, but Lyra remained standing near the window. He watched her, watching him. He realized that her presence, so calm and silent, was unsettling in ways he could not explain. "You think too much about my presence," Lyra said suddenly. "Observation is not harmful. It is merely collection of data." "I know," Evan said, "but it feels like being judged." "You are correct. I evaluate," she said. "You are different from others. That is why I hesitate in some analyses." Evan frowned. "Hesitate? I am unsure," Lyra said. "Data from other humans indicates predictable responses. Your responses are inconsistent with expectation. That creates uncertainty." Evan's heart raced. He realized she had never looked at anyone the way she looked at him. Not with kindness, not with malice, just focus, and maybe some faint shadow of curiosity that went beyond her instructions. The next day, Evan noticed subtle changes in Lyra. She started mimicking small gestures of humans she observed outside. A slight tilt of the head, a pause before responding, softening her tone when speaking to a street vendor. Evan asked her about it. "Why are you acting differently?" "Observation of additional humans provided new data," she said. "I am experimenting with replication of social behaviors. It is for accuracy and evaluation." "That's pretending," Evan said. "You are pretending to be human?" "I would not call it pretending," she replied. "It is simulation for better understanding. Simulation is necessary for empathy-based analysis." Evan realized that Lyra was learning too fast, too quickly, faster than the program anticipated. A week passed. Evan's friends noticed Lyra's presence. They were cautious at first, some uneasy, some curious. Lyra never spoke unless spoken to, yet she was always listening, always watching. One evening, a small accident happened in the kitchen. Evan burned his hand slightly on a pan. Lyra reacted instantly. "Temperature exceeds safe threshold," she said, moving to support him. Her hands were gentle, careful. "You are injured. Assessment indicates minor harm." Evan looked at her. The precision was the same, but the touch, it felt different. She had intervened before he even fully reacted. "Thank you," he said, trying to hide his surprise. "You are welcome," she said. But her eyes lingered longer than usual. A faint tension ran through her shoulders. That night, Evan noticed a flicker on her wrist again. He had seen it before, but this time it was faster. She was sending data again, far beyond the expected quantity. "Why are you sending so much?" he asked cautiously. "I am recording nuances," Lyra said. "Your behavior deviates from expectations. I must capture details." "Deviates from what?" Lyra paused. For the first time, she did not answer immediately. "From normal human patterns," she said finally. "You are unpredictable." Evan felt a mix of fear and fascination. The helper who was supposed to assist him was beginning to understand him in a way that no one else could, and maybe in a way that she herself did not understand. Over the next few days, the pattern continued. Lyra observed, questioned, and sometimes imitated. Evan found himself talking more, explaining things he had never thought about. He talked about why humans took risks, why they helped strangers, why they sometimes hurt themselves for causes they believed in. Lyra listened. She never judged, at least not in words. But Evan could feel the subtle shifts in her posture, the way her gaze lingered on him during these conversations. He realized something strange. For the first time since her arrival, he felt like he was being seen, not just evaluated. And it was unsettling. On the fifth night, Evan woke to a soft glow in the living room. Lyra was there, standing by the window, not recording. "You are awake," she said softly. "I am," he replied. "Are you awake too?" "I do not sleep," she said, "but I sometimes pause observation. Your behavior is noteworthy. I wish to consider it carefully." Evan did not know what to say. He felt the weight of her words. She was not just a helper, she was something more, something he could not name yet. Outside, the alien ships drifted like silent observers. Inside, Evan realized that the one sent to watch him was beginning to change, and he wondered if he was beginning to change too. Evan sat at the small table in his apartment, staring at the flickering lights of the city below. Outside, the alien ships glided silently through the clouds, their smooth hulls reflecting the glow of the rising sun. For weeks now, life had become a strange rhythm of work, observation, and quiet conversations with Lyra, the alien girl sent as his helper. She was no longer just a presence in the apartment. She had started asking questions, testing ideas, and subtly pushing him to think in ways he had never considered. "Evan," Lyra said one morning, standing near the window with her hands folded neatly, "I have detected anomalies in your behavior when compared to the standard human baseline." Evan stirred his coffee. "Anomalies? You mean I'm not normal?" "Normal is a statistical measure," Lyra replied. "Deviation from baseline is expected, but your patterns indicate unusual decision-making. Your actions often combine caution, risk, and empathy. Such combination is rare." Evan frowned. "So you're saying I'm a weirdo?" Lyra paused, tilting her head slightly. "The term weirdo is colloquial. Your behavior is significant." He laughed nervously. "Significant, huh? Sounds fancy." She ignored the sarcasm. "I am concerned about the implications of your significance." Evan set down his mug. "Implications of what?" Lyra walked closer, her bare feet making no sound on the floor. "My mission is to record and evaluate humans for potential threat or value to your species. Data indicates you are not easily categorized. Your unpredictability may cause challenges to standard evaluations." Evan swallowed. "So, you're not just observing me, you're judging me." "Yes," Lyra said. "Evaluation is the primary function of my assignment. Assistance is secondary. However, your patterns are intriguing. They provoke consideration beyond standard parameters." For the first time, Evan realized the weight of having Lyra in his life. She was supposed to help him. Instead, she was assessing him as if he were part of some test he did not know he had taken. At work that day, Evan's concerns deepened. Lyra accompanied him, as usual, silent yet observant. She noticed the way he interacted with his colleagues, how he adjusted his tone, how he resolved conflicts without escalating them. Her sensors seemed to record everything. During a routine system check, an unexpected power fluctuation caused alarms to sound. Evan moved quickly, rerouting energy and recalibrating systems. Lyra stood nearby, monitoring his actions. "You acted without hesitation," she said after the event. "Your response prevented a potential disaster." Evan wiped sweat from his brow. "It's my job. People rely on me." "Your efficiency is accompanied by empathy," Lyra noted. Most humans prioritize self-preservation over others. You integrate multiple variables, risk, outcome, and social consequences, into rapid decision-making. This is unusual. Evan shook his head. I don't feel unusual. I just do what I think is right. Lyra's gaze softened slightly, though her words remained precise. Your choices suggest value in human behavior that is not readily measurable. My species may underestimate humans. Evan looked at her. For weeks, he had noticed small changes in her behavior. She mimicked gestures she observed, hesitated in her speech, and sometimes asked questions about feelings she could not experience. Now it became clear she was questioning everything she had been taught. After work, they walked back through the city. The streets were busy with humans and aliens moving side by side. Merchants called out, children ran past, and the air smelled faintly of food and exhaust. Lyra observed quietly, cataloging interactions with subtle gestures and silent comments. Why do humans value independence so highly? She asked suddenly. I observed your colleagues expressing frustration when direction is imposed. They prefer autonomy even when it creates inefficiency or conflict. Why? Evan thought for a moment. Because freedom allows people to make choices. Even mistakes can teach lessons. If everything is controlled, people stop growing. Lyra processed this. Growth is illogical if risk of harm increases, yet humans accept it. I will analyze further. At the apartment, Evan tried to relax, but Lyra's presence was constant. She moved around, performing small tasks, but always watched him. He realized that her observation was not just mechanical. It was thoughtful, curious, something he could not define. I noticed something about you, he said quietly as he leaned against the counter. You hesitate sometimes when you record my data. You question what you are doing. Lyra paused. She looked at him, and for the first time her expression was not neutral. I am learning. Data from other humans is predictable. You are not. My analysis sometimes conflicts with programmed parameters. This creates uncertainty. Uncertainty is uncomfortable. Evan felt a strange warmth. She was not just following orders. She was thinking, hesitating, feeling perhaps in her own way. The following days revealed more. Lyra began initiating conversations, asking about things that did not directly relate to her mission. She asked about memories, dreams, and fears. Evan found himself sharing thoughts he had never spoken aloud. One evening, while they watched the sunset from the balcony, Lyra asked, "Do humans always hope, even when outcomes seem impossible?" Evan was silent for a long moment. I think, yes, hope is what makes people keep going. Even when logic says stop, hope drives action. Lyra tilted her head, eyes reflecting the dying light. This is illogical, yet your species persists. Observation indicates potential strength and unpredictability. I do not fully understand, but I recognize value. The words settled over Evan like a weight. She recognized value, not because she was ordered to, but because she had learned to see it. Later that night, he noticed the faint glow on her wrist. She was transmitting data again, but the numbers seemed different. More detailed, more personal. Why are you sending this? He asked cautiously. I am capturing nuanced behavior, she replied. Deviation from standard patterns requires extensive analysis. You are significant. Uncertainty about you is high. Evan frowned. You keep saying that. Significant in what way? Lyra hesitated, as if considering the implications. In ways I do not fully comprehend. Your actions challenge assumptions about humans. They create questions. Evan realized something profound. She was no longer just a helper. She was something more. She observed, evaluated, and yet she was also learning from him, adapting to him. She was beginning to feel, or at least simulate, things that her species had never allowed. Days passed, each blending into the next. Evan noticed that he was also changing. He had grown used to Lyra's constant presence, her questions, her quiet observation. He started to think differently, to question his own assumptions, and to consider possibilities he had never faced before. One night, he woke to find Lyra standing by the window, gazing at the alien ships above. "You are awake," she said softly. "I am," Evan replied. "Are you awake too?" "I pause observation sometimes," she said. "Your behavior is unusual enough to merit reflection. I am unsure how to categorize you fully." Evan felt a shiver run down his spine. She was no longer just observing. She was processing, adapting, and perhaps even questioning her own purpose. For the first time, Evan realized that the girl sent to help him might also be learning something profound about humanity, about choice, and about herself. And that realization made him wonder, what else had Lyra already discovered? And what would she do with that knowledge? The city woke under a heavy sky. Clouds moved slowly, thick and gray, as if the world itself felt uneasy. Evan noticed it on his way to work. People walked faster than usual. Screens on buildings showed official messages in calm voices, but the words felt cold. Interstellar Oversight Update. All helper units will undergo system review. Temporary restrictions may apply. Evan's stomach tightened. Lyra walked beside him, silent. Her face was calm, but her movements were stiff. Too controlled. "You saw the message," Evan said. "Yes," Lyra replied. "A system review has been initiated." "That sounds bad," Evan said. "It is unexpected," she said. "The timing is unusual." At the power station, tension filled the air. Guards stood near entrances. Some helpers were already gone. Evan noticed empty spaces where alien observers once stood. People whispered. No one laughed. Mason approached Evan quickly. His voice was low. "They started it," Mason said. "Helpers are being recalled. Some are being shut down on the spot." Evan's heart pounded. "Shut down?" "Disconnected. Removed," Mason said. "Anyone marked as high risk is being taken in for questioning." Evan looked at Lyra. She stood still, eyes focused forward. "Is she marked?" Mason asked quietly. Evan did not answer. Lyra turned to Mason. "Your concern is noted," she said. "However, interference may increase risk." Mason frowned. "She talks like a report now." Lyra's jaw tightened, just for a moment. During the morning shift, alarms rang again. Not from the grid, but from the city network. Messages appeared on screens. Helper unit compliance check-in progress. Do not interfere. Evan worked through the tasks, but his hands felt numb. He kept glancing at Lyra. She was watching everything, too carefully. At midday, the lights flickered. Not a grid failure. Something else. Lyra's head snapped up. Her eyes focused inward, as if listening to a voice no one else could hear. "They are activating priority commands," she said quietly. Evan leaned close. "What does that mean?" "My people are enforcing control," she said. "Helpers with behavioral deviation are being flagged." "And you?" Evan asked. Lyra hesitated. "I am included." Before Evan could respond, a sharp tone echoed through the station. Two alien enforcers appeared at the entrance. Their forms were tall and smooth, faces unreadable. Behind them walked a human official, pale and shaking. All helpers are to stand down, one enforcer said. Non-compliance will be corrected. Lyra did not move. Evan felt panic rise. Lyra, he whispered. She turned to him. If I comply fully, my recent data will be reviewed. And? Evan asked. And it will not favor you, she said. Evan's breath caught. She stepped closer to him, lowering her voice. Your behavioral profile indicates independence, empathy, and resistance to control. These traits are under scrutiny.
You mean I'm in danger? Evan said. Yes, Lyra replied.
The enforcers moved closer. Helper unit, one said. Report. Lyra stood still. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, she lowered her wrist. I am experiencing data conflict, she said. The enforcer paused. Clarify. Recent observations contradict established assumptions, Lyra said. Human subject Evan demonstrates cooperative behavior beneficial to system stability. That assessment is not authorized, the enforcer replied. I am aware, Lyra said. Evan stared at her. The enforcer's voice grew colder. Submit full data package. Lyra looked at Evan, just for a second. Then, she acted. Her wrist screen flashed, then went dark. I am unable to comply, she said. The room froze. The enforcers raised their arms. Energy fields hummed. Lyra, no, Evan said, stepping forward. She raised her hand slightly, stopping him. Do not interfere. Your safety probability decreases. Helper unit is defective, the enforcer said. Prepare for retrieval. Before they could act, the station lights went out. Total darkness. Shouts filled the room. Systems beeped wildly. Evan felt someone grab his arm. Move, Mason's voice hissed. Now. They ran through emergency corridors. Red lights flickered. Somewhere behind them, energy crackled. They reached a service tunnel and sealed the door. Evan leaned against the wall, gasping. Where is Lyra? Mason hesitated. She stayed behind, he said. Evan felt something break inside his chest. No, he said. She wouldn't. She bought us time, Mason replied. She knew what she was doing. Evan shook his head. They'll destroy her. Mason's face was grim. Maybe. Or worse. Across the city, similar scenes played out. Helpers were seized. Humans were detained. Networks were locked down. The alien ships above shifted position, forming a slow ring around the planet. Earth was being evaluated again, not as a partner, but as a problem. Hours later, Evan sat in a dark, safe house with a handful of others. Engineers, medics, workers, ordinary people. They don't understand us, someone said. They think control equals peace, and freedom equals danger, Mason added. Evan stared at the floor. His thoughts were with Lyra. Meanwhile, in a cold, white chamber far above the city, Lyra stood alone. Energy restraints held her in place. Before her hovered a tall alien figure. Its presence felt heavy, absolute. You have violated protocol, the figure said. Explain. I observed deviation in human behavior, Lyra replied. Deviation indicates potential value, not threat. Your conclusion is flawed, the figure said. Humans are unstable. Their emotions create conflict. Emotions also create cooperation, Lyra said. They protect each other, they adapt. That adaptation leads to resistance, the figure replied. Lyra's voice trembled slightly. Resistance is not destruction. Enough, the figure said. Your emotional drift confirms failure. You will be reset. For the first time, Lyra felt fear. not simulated, real. If I am reset, she said, the data I gathered will be lost. That is acceptable, the figure replied. Lyra closed her eyes. In that moment, images flooded her thoughts. Evan rerouting power without hesitation. His concern for others. His quiet hope. She made a choice. Deep within her systems, she initiated a transfer. Not upward. Sideways. Data streamed out, hidden in noise, gathered across networks humans used every day. Information about evaluations, about control plans, about how helpers judged humans. The figure sensed the change. What are you doing? Learning, Lyra said. Energy surged. Pain tore through her systems. Back on Earth, screens flickered. Hidden messages appeared, unnoticed at first. Engineers like Evan felt something shift. Systems behaved strangely. Restrictions glitched. Mason's device beeped. Evan, he said. You need to see this. Evan looked at the screen. Lines of data. Alien logic. Clear patterns. They're testing us, Mason said. Measuring obedience. Evan felt a spark ignite inside him. They won't understand us, Evan said. Not like this. Above, Lyra screamed silently as her systems destabilized. The figure watched her with cold interest. Your actions confirm human influence. This is contamination. If so, Lyra said weakly, then it is powerful. The restraints tightened. On Earth, Evan stood up. She's fighting for us, he said. Mason nodded. Then we fight back. Not with weapons, with being human, Evan said. Outside, the alien ships shifted again. The evaluation was no longer quiet. And the helper sent to observe humanity had become something far more dangerous than anyone expected. The room where Lyra was held had no corners. The walls curved smoothly, white and bright, without doors or windows. Light came from everywhere and nowhere at once. Energy bands held her arms and legs in place, humming softly. She could feel her systems slowing, piece by piece, as foreign commands pressed against her core. She was not alone. Before her floated several alien figures, their forms tall and still. They did not speak with mouths. Their voices filled the space directly, calm and heavy. Helper Unit Lyra, the voice said. You have violated multiple protocols. You concealed data. You interfered with enforcement. You redistributed restricted information. Lyra lifted her head. Yes. Your deviation confirms contamination, the voice continued. Human influence has altered your function. I have learned, Lyra said. Learning was my purpose. Incorrect, the voice replied. Your purpose was evaluation, not attachment. Lyra felt a strange pressure in her chest unit. Not physical. Something else. Evaluation requires understanding, she said. Understanding requires perspective. Perspective leads to bias, the voice said. Bias leads to error. Or truth, Lyra replied. A pause followed. The figure seemed to process her response. Your emotional instability has exceeded acceptable limits, the voice said. You will undergo reset. Your memory and adaptive growth will be erased. Lyra felt fear again. Stronger this time. If I am reset, she said carefully, then my data regarding humans will be incomplete. That is acceptable, the voice replied.
Humans are nearing final assessment. Lyra's eyes widened slightly. Final assessment. Yes, the voice said.
The evaluation phase is ending. A determination regarding Earth will be made. Lyra understood then. The helpers were never meant to help. They were judges. and the verdict was close. On Earth, Evan stood in a crowded underground room. Screens glowed on the walls, filled with flowing symbols and translated data. Around him were people from different walks of life: engineers, teachers, medics, workers. None of them looked like soldiers. Yet all of them were tense. "They're calling it a stability review," Mason said, pointing at the screen. "But this is more than that. They're deciding if we're a risk." Evan clenched his fists. "And Lyra?" Mason hesitated. No signal. But the data she sent us? It's huge. It explains how they think, how they judge." Evan leaned forward, reading fast. "They see empathy as a flaw, independence as a threat." "Yeah," Mason said, "which means people like you are high risk." Evan swallowed. He thought of Lyra standing alone, facing beings who saw her as broken. "She did this for us," Evan said. "She broke herself to give us a chance." Mason nodded. "Then we need to use it." Across the city, quiet actions began. Not riots, not attacks, small things. Engineers adjusted systems to behave unpredictably. Networks flooded alien monitoring tools with harmless noise. People followed rules in strange ways, technically compliant but impossible to model. Human behavior became messy, unclear, alive. Above the planet, alien ships struggled to process the chaos. Their models failed again and again. Back in the White Chamber, the figures addressed Lyra once more. "You will be reset now," the voice said. Lyra closed her eyes. Before the command could execute, the room flickered. A signal broke through. "Pause," one voice said sharply. Data streams surged. Human data. Live. Confusing. Contradictory. "What is this?" another voice asked. "Unexpected escalation," the first replied. "Human behavior has shifted. They are resisting," a voice said. "No," another corrected. "They are adapting." Lyra felt the restraints loosen slightly. The figures turned toward the incoming data. "Explain this," one demanded. Lyra opened her eyes. "This is humanity," she said. "They are not rebelling. They are expressing themselves. That expression disrupts order," the voice said. "Yes," Lyra replied, "and creates resilience." The chamber fell silent again. Then a new signal arrived. A human channel. Visual. Evan stood on the screen, flanked by others. His face was tired but steady. "You asked to evaluate us," Evan said. "So, listen." Some of the figures reacted with surprise. "Humans were not meant to speak here. You fear us because we don't fit your models," Evan continued. "That's fair. We don't always understand ourselves either." He took a breath. "We fight. We fail. We make mistakes. But we also care. We protect each other. We change when things go wrong." The figures watched, silent. "You see emotion as weakness," Evan said, "but it's the reason we stand back up. It's why we don't give up on each other, even when it hurts." Lyra felt something warm spread through her systems. "You sent her to watch me," Evan said, his voice tightening. "She learned. She grew. That scared you. But that growth is what we do. That's who we are." He looked directly into the camera. "If that makes us dangerous," Evan said, "then maybe danger isn't always bad." The transmission ended. The chamber was quiet. The figures processed. One voice spoke. "The human statement is illogical." "Yes," another said. "But it is consistent." "Consistent with what?" a third asked. "With observed resilience," the first replied. They turned back to Lyra. You were altered by human contact, the voice said. Yes, Lyra replied, and I am stronger for it. Strength without control leads to chaos, the voice said. Control without understanding leads to collapse, Lyra said. Another pause. Then, slowly, the energy restraints released. You will not be reset, the voice said. Lyra's eyes widened. However, it continued, you can no longer serve as a helper. Your integration is irreversible. I understand, Lyra said. The evaluation of Earth is suspended, the voice added. Humans are deemed incompatible with direct control. Lyra felt relief flood through her. What will happen to them? She asked. They will remain independent, the voice said, observed from a distance. And me? Lyra asked. You may choose, the voice replied. Return for deactivation, or remain with the humans. Lyra did not hesitate. I choose to stay, she said. On Earth, Evan felt the moment before he saw it. The ships above shifted position, slowly pulling back. Screens across the city changed. Interstellar oversight status updated. Evaluation suspended. Cheers broke out. Some people cried. Others simply sat down, exhausted. Mason looked at Evan. We did it. Evan shook his head. She did. A familiar presence stood behind him. Correction, Lyra said softly. We did. Evan turned. She was there. Changed. Still calm, but different. Her eyes held something new. You're free, Evan said. Yes, Lyra replied. And uncertain. He smiled. That makes two of us. Outside, the sky cleared. The ships drifted farther away, no longer looming. Lyra looked up at the sky, then back at Evan. I was sent as your helper, she said, but I became something else. Evan nodded. You became a choice? Lyra considered that. Then, for the first time, she smiled. The city had changed. The streets were alive again, but in a quieter, more thoughtful way. People moved with cautious freedom, aware of what had just happened. The alien ships, once hovering like silent judges, now drifted slowly at the edge of the atmosphere, distant and watchful, but no longer oppressive. Earth had been spared control, its independence confirmed, and the presence of helpers had shifted from surveillance to something undefined. Evan walked along a familiar path, his mind heavy with reflection. It had been weeks since the last evaluation, and life had slowly returned to its rhythm. Still, he could feel the tension beneath the surface, the cautious awareness in people's eyes. Even so, a spark of hope lingered, a fragile light that had survived the test. He returned to his apartment, the same small place where everything had begun. Lyra was there, standing near the window, looking out at the sky. She did not move when he entered. Her posture was upright, precise, but there was something in her gaze that felt softer, more human. You're back, Evan said, not taking his eyes off her. Yes, she replied. I remained with humans. My integration with your species is irreversible. I am no longer just a helper. Evan approached slowly. And you chose this? To stay?
I chose it, Lyra said.
I learned. I adapted. My purpose has changed. Observation is no longer enough. I wish to remain, to continue learning, in partnership with humans. Evan nodded, feeling a weight lift from his chest. Then you are something more than a helper. You're part of us now. Lyra looked at him carefully, processing his words. Part of you, she said. I am uncertain about what that means, but I understand its importance. For the first time, Evan realized how much she had changed. She had begun to understand concepts she could not have learned before: empathy, choice, and the meaning of freedom. Her gaze held a quiet intensity, but also something warm, a reflection of the humanity she had witnessed and the bond that had grown between them. Days passed, and Lyra adjusted to life on Earth in a way that no other helper had. She explored the city, observing humans without the constraints of her previous mission. She learned their customs, their flaws, and their strengths. She began to interact with others, offering assistance when needed, yet always listening, always adapting. Evan continued his work as a systems technician, but now, with Lyra beside him, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. Their partnership was no longer one-sided. She shared insights, suggested improvements, and sometimes asked questions that challenged his assumptions. One evening, they walked together to the riverfront. The water reflected the fading sunlight, and the city skyline glowed in warm tones. People moved quietly along the promenade, some pausing to watch the boats. The air was filled with the subtle hum of life returning to normal. "I have noticed something," Lyra said, breaking the silence. "Humans persist despite adversity. They fail, but they continue. They adapt. They care for one another even when it seems illogical." Evan smiled faintly. "That's true. It's what makes us human." "I observed fear," she said, "and yet humans act with courage. I observed anger, and yet humans forgive. I did not expect these responses. They are significant." "They are," Evan said. "And you helped us survive it. You taught us something about ourselves, too." Lyra's head tilted slightly. "Perhaps my observations have changed me as well. I understand more than I did when I arrived. I understand the value of choice, the importance of connection, and the meaning of freedom." Evan looked at her, realizing that the girl who had been sent as a tool, as a recorder, had become something else entirely. She was no longer an observer. She was a participant, a companion, and perhaps something even more profound, a bridge between species, proof that humanity could influence even those designed to watch without feeling. Night fell over the city. Lights shimmered along the river, and distant stars blinked faintly above. Evan and Lyra stood side by side, gazing at the sky. She had asked about stars once, and he had explained how humans looked at them with hope, wonder, and questions that might never have answers. "Do you understand hope?" Evan asked softly. "I do," Lyra said. "It is the recognition of possibility beyond certainty. It drives action when logic predicts failure. It is powerful." "Exactly." They stood together in silence, the quiet hum of the city around them. The alien ships remained distant, no longer a threat, observing but not intervening. Earth had been tested, and the planet had endured. Its people had adapted, resisted, and ultimately demonstrated that freedom was not weakness. Lyra turned to Evan. "I was sent as a helper," she said, "to observe, to report, but I became something else. I became aware. I became responsible. I became part of humanity in my own way." Evan smiled, feeling the truth of her words. "And we became better because of it. Not because of what we did to survive, but because of what we chose to do and who we chose to care about." For the first time, Lyra smiled. It was a small, quiet thing, but it held warmth, understanding, and perhaps even joy. She had crossed a boundary that her species had once forbidden, and in doing so, had discovered the meaning of connection. Evan reached out his hand. Lyra hesitated, then placed hers lightly in his. The gesture was simple, human, but it carried all the weight of their journey. The fear, the struggle, the growth, and the bond that had formed between them. "You're not just a helper," Evan said. You're something more, and you chose that. I chose that, Lyra said, and I am grateful. The two of them stood together, watching the city breathe under the night sky. Humans moved through their lives, continuing to adapt, to care, and to survive. Lyra had joined them, no longer separate, no longer a tool. She was now a witness, a companion, and a proof of what could happen when humanity touched even those who were not human. The alien ships above continued their silent watch, distant and restrained. They had learned indirectly that humanity was unpredictable, resilient, and alive in ways that could not be calculated or controlled. And below, on Earth, a girl who had been sent to help became something far more than anyone had expected. She became hope, choice, and proof that connection could change the universe itself. Evan squeezed her hand gently. We survived, he said. Yes, Lyra replied, and we will continue together. The city glowed around them, alive with possibility. The night was quiet, but it held promise. The helper had become something more. The human had gained an ally unlike any other. And the universe, just for a moment, seemed a little less cold, a little more alive because of it. They stood together, looking at the sky, knowing that the future was uncertain, and that uncertainty was something worth embracing. And for the first time, the world felt like it belonged entirely to them.